I've been married for 3 years, and I gave birth to twins last year. Since giving birth, my feelings towards my husband have done a complete 180. It's hard to believe, but is this a common thing? To be honest, my feelings towards my husband have cooled off. In the past, even if my husband left all the housework to me, I would say, "It's okay, I've got it," and laugh it off without minding. We understood the division of roles, where he worked, and I took care of the house, positively seeing each other as partners. But now, it's different. I find myself thinking, what is he doing? Hurry up. When he said, "I work outside, I've left the kids to you," I thought, what a burden he is. Stress has certainly been building up more than before. I find myself thinking, what's with him even over small things? But now, I have an outlet for stress that is just as effective. It's all thanks to my MIL. There was a time when I was exhausted from unfamiliar childcare, and I almost had a nervous breakdown right after childbirth. To escape from the situation where I could only see childcare, I thought about putting the kids in nursery school and returning to work. However, it wasn't easy to get them into nursery school because it was highly competitive. When I told my MIL about it, she said, "Then, how about working at our shop for a change of pace? Of course, I'll pay you for the work. While you're working, my husband and I will take turns looking after the kids." The family business, run by my FIL, is an old-fashioned catering bento shop, and they were flexible about it. Moreover, my MIL seemed to have been worried about me, seeing that I was struggling with childcare. She had already obtained my FIL's approval in advance, so I was able to start working right away. I'm getting more than enough salary, and my in-laws take turns looking after the kids, so it's a great stress relief for me. By the way, my husband doesn't work in the family business. He's just an ordinary company employee. Besides, he belittles the family business, saying it's too old-fashioned. There was a time when my MIL asked him to take over, but he flatly refused in less than a second. Despite that, he seems to dislike being left out when I'm happily talking with my MIL about the menu for the bento. He says things like, "Thinking hard about the menu won't bring any profit." Honestly, after starting my work at the bento shop, I realized that the family business is quite profitable. Since it's a catering bento, we only take orders from customers who have made reservations, and there's no queue in front of the store. My salary is actually higher than my husband's. But I keep it a secret. It would be troublesome if it came out, so I say that I'm helping with my in-laws' business, not working. At any rate, my husband is overly worried about me working. He's concerned about what will happen if housework is neglected. Even though couples might suspect that their salaries are revealed, surprisingly, it doesn't get noticed. We have separate bank accounts, and I contribute half of the living expenses from my salary. My husband thinks I'm good at saving money, saying, "You managed to keep it cheap this month too." He claims there's no profit for the bento store, so I suppose he thinks my salary isn't much either. Moreover, for my husband, the fact that I properly handle housework and childcare seems more important. The complaints never end. My husband's personality has always been like this. Before giving birth, I used to be more laid back in dealing with things. Personally, divorce is the last resort in my mind. We have children. As I mentioned earlier, my husband is the worst, but my MIL and FIL are the best. If my in-laws were also mean, divorce would be the only option. However, in my case, things are well balanced, so it doesn't interfere with my life. Despite everything, my husband has never yelled at me, and he even allows me to work. When I hear stories of people enduring married life while being bullied by both in-laws and their husbands, I think I'm not in such a bad situation. I don't want to cut ties with my in-laws, and I don't have the confidence to raise twins alone without a job. That brings us to the night 3 weeks ago. On that day, there was a sudden funeral, and many orders for catering bento came in. My in-laws' shop also handles ceremonies, so they accept orders outside regular hours. This time, since we needed to prepare late into the night and start cooking early in the morning, I was asked to come and help, staying overnight. Of course, I had no reason to refuse a request from my MIL, who I'm always grateful to. So, that night, I decided to go to my in-laws' house with both kids. I informed my husband, who had finished dinner, about this plan. He responded with a childish question, "Eh? Then, what about breakfast tomorrow? I replied, huh? You're an adult. You should be able to figure that out for yourself. Explosions of dissatisfaction erupted in my mind. I said, there's bread in the fridge, toast it and eat it. He muttered softly, yeah, got it. Ugh, so annoying. Despite being an incompetent husband who doesn't usually do anything, his one redeeming quality was that he didn't get angry even when I worked. But this time, he seemed to feel disadvantaged because I chose to work. He looked angry, different from usual. Little did I know, this was a precursor to the next day. The next morning, my FIL went for deliveries, and after finishing the bento preparations, my MIL and I were about to have a leisurely breakfast. That's when my husband called. I wonder what it is. He wouldn't be complaining that he can't toast bread, right? I thought as I answered the phone. Then came the verbal abuse, you forgot the bento. I usually prepare my husband's lunch. Today, of course, I had an overnight job, so there was no way I could prepare it. It seems my husband is angry about that. I was completely baffled and irritated by his statement. Yesterday, when I was leaving the house, I told my husband, I won't be able to make lunch tomorrow. You'll have to manage it by yourself. I said it, and my husband gave a casual response, but I guess he wasn't paying attention. If he didn't hear it, it's his fault. Later, when I mentioned, yesterday, I told you I couldn't make lunch, so you have to figure it out, right? He exploded. I didn't hear that. Whether you said it or not is not the issue. Even if you help, a housewife should handle household chores properly. Don't slack off on housework. My husband said, getting furious. Despite being sleep-deprived and irritated from helping in the middle of the night, this statement annoyed me the most. I switched into counterattack mode. You're at fault for not listening. After all, slacking off implies laziness. I'm not lazy because I informed you in advance. It seems like you're misunderstanding something. You're the one who said you'd help at the bento shop but still handle household chores. Don't abandon it. Did you forget what you said? What's with this defensiveness? Like a boomerang, my husband retaliated. During breakfast preparation, my MI was there, but I couldn't stop arguing. So, I haven't abandoned household chores. Abandoning means throwing away work without looking back. I informed you in advance, so I'm not throwing it away. I asked you for help, remember? Didn't you say things like, you can buy bentos at any convenience store? Did you forget what you said? Instead of complaining, why don't you go buy a bento at that convenience store? Using my adept command of the language, I silenced my husband. I never thought my husband's language skills were this weak. I've thought I should have done this earlier. Well, part of the reason I could be so assertive is thanks to my MIL. Actually, this conversation was on speaker, and I made sure my MIL could hear it. When my husband's call came, my MIL softly said, Cindy, can you have the conversation on speaker? Then came my husband's usual complaints. Every time my husband tried to argue back, I could see my MIL's face changing like a demon. Knowing that my MIL was on my side gave me confidence, and I felt empowered. All right then, I'll hang up. Wait a minute. The conversation isn't over yet. I reached for my smartphone to end the pointless conversation. At that moment, my MIL stopped my hand. Putting her finger to her lips, she signaled to ignore it. While still on the call, my MIL began talking to me. I thought it might be something since morning, but it turned out to be a trivial call. Cindy, my son has a really small heart if he gets angry just because you couldn't make lunch once. I'm sorry. Hey, Cindy, the call isn't over. Is my mom nearby? Suddenly, my MIL's private conversation started, and my husband seemed surprised. Of course, the call wasn't disconnected, so our conversation was completely audible. Pretending the call was cut, my MIL continued talking. Understanding my MIL's strategy, I decided to join the conversation. Cindy, being with my son who dumps housework and childcare on you, Is there anything good about it? To be honest, there isn't. That's right. He's a burden. Maybe you should seriously consider that thing we've thought about. That thing? What are you talking about? Although my husband occasionally tried to join the conversation, we ignored his words. Yeah. I've been thinking of it as a last resort, so I didn't want to bring it up. It would betray the oath of eternal love we made at the wedding. Last resort? Betray? You must have it already, right? The divorce papers. Yeah. Of course, I have them. I've been enduring being dumped with childcare and housework for so long. Feel free to submit them anytime. Divorce papers? You were thinking that far? Cindy. Mom. Can you hear me? Respond, please. Of course, we could hear, but we continued to ignore him. It might sound strange coming from a parent, but Cindy, if you're going to get sick from stress, maybe consider getting rid of my son? What? At this moment, my husband and I synchronized in our shock. I never expected my MIL to say something so frankly. People often receive more damage when things are said behind their backs than when said directly to their faces. Moreover, being treated as disposable with getting rid of is even worse. My husband seemed significantly damaged by this indirect attack. Over the phone, he went from saying, "Hey," or "What are you saying?" to "Isn't it enough already?" And "Do you need to say that?" while sounding increasingly disheartened. In the end, it fell into silence. It was so quiet that I wondered, did he actually hang up? But checking my smartphone, the call was still ongoing. He couldn't help but be concerned about the conversation. I'm thinking of bringing up divorce if my husband doesn't change his attitude today. That's a good idea. I'm on your side. I support the divorce. Well, it depends on whether our son decides to change himself. With a tense conversation, I finally hung up the phone. In the past, I had complained to my MIL about my husband's behavior. I had a feeling. It must have been tough all this time. He needs a wake-up call, even if it hurts. This time, I believe that's what she intended. The effect was remarkable. When my husband came home, he apologized humbly, saying, "I said too much today. I'm sorry. So, don't go through with it, please." Go through with what? Oh, this, you mean? I showed him the pre-filled divorce papers. I'll change, so don't abandon me, please. I realized my life has been running smoothly because you've been taking care of the household every day. I ended up relying on you too much. I'm sorry. For some reason, my husband showed me a bot bento. What's this? This is tomorrow's lunch for me. You don't have to make lunch tomorrow. I'll make an effort to help you with the housework. Whether you're making an effort or not, I'll decide based on your future actions. Saying that, I stuck the divorce papers on the refrigerator, meaning not to forget today's events. If my husband's behavior gradually changes, my once-cooled feelings might return. However, there was a minor hiccup afterward. It turns out, my MIL also had grievances against my husband. Moreover, she had been enduring those dissatisfactions without resolving them. My husband hasn't apologized yet. He lost his job and, of all things, pleaded to be hired by my in-laws' shop, which he had previously mocked. To simplify, it was due to company downsizing caused by poor management. He received negative evaluations for only doing the bare minimum at work, just like at home, where he didn't help me with anything. Pride is non-existent in someone who has lost their job. However, his past remarks came back to haunt him, and my MIL flatly rejected him. Still, my husband insisted, "I'm the son, I'm the heir, right?" If that's the case, try making our specialty, fried eggs, right now. Suddenly, my MIL started a test, and I got dragged into it too. My husband, who had never cooked before, ended up with a burnt failure. You've created something terrible. This is inedible. Don't underestimate the bento shop. With a scolding, my MIL made my husband taste my fried eggs. And at the incredible taste, my husband shed tears and said, "It's delicious." In just 1 year, Cindy mastered this taste. The true successor is Cindy. We don't need another successor, you're not necessary. I have a daughter, but I don't have a son. Think for yourself and take action. With that, she delivered the final blow. At that moment, I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for my husband. Well, my MIL supported me, so I should be grateful. But she had her own intentions for this cold and harsh treatment. After being told by my MIL to think for yourself and take action, my husband started an apprenticeship at the bento shop the next day and began handling miscellaneous tasks. My husband admitted, "I'm not the heir, just a regular underling." He accepted his position gracefully, and my MIL acknowledged him as an apprentice. Perhaps my husband chose the bento shop over changing jobs because it seems to be heading in a positive direction. There are many customers seeking the bento from this shop, showing that the store is beloved. Understanding the wonderful points, such as how carefully the preparations are done to create delicious dishes, my husband seems to have found joy in helping. He apologized, saying, "I'm sorry for looking down on you," and he also apologized to my MIL and FIL. I think back then, my MIL deliberately pushed him away as a strategy to make him change. It seems like a safe ending, but it feels well-rounded. Even now, my husband occasionally says strange things, but when pointed out, he listens and has improved from before. If there's a couple like us, with some awkwardness, I want to convey that even if you can't completely fix your habits, the awareness and effort to fix them for the other person are crucial.